Welcome to activity 7 of having fun with chemical reactions. In this reaction we're going to be looking at what happens when we mix metals with acids. Okay, now the main thing that we need to know is that when we put a metal with an acid, the first thing that is generated is a metal salt. Now in most cases, because we're adding a solid metal with a liquid salt, more often than not the metal is going to dissolve and the metal salt comes out in solution. Now, the metal salt is made up of two things. Firstly, there's the metal, and secondly, there's the salt. Now, the salt is dependent on the type of acid that you've used. Now, in the table that you can see here, it shows what type of salt is generated when you add a certain type of acid. It also gives you the ion that that salt equates to. So, for example, hydrochloric acid, when it's mixed with the metal, will always give the metal chloride, with the chloride being Cl-. Now, by knowing the ion of the salt, it's important to know when we produce ionic formulae, when we're putting the compound together. Again, if you have problems with these, go back to the St. Hilda's Chemical Skills course, enroll in that, and run through those chemical formulae. And by the end of that course, you'll be happy to use these ions, no problem at all. Nitric acid will always produce the metal nitrate salt, and the nitrate salt is NO3-, and sulfuric acid produces a metal sulfate, SO4 2-, and carbonic acid will produce a metal carbonate, and the carbonate ion is CO3 2-. Now the salt section is very, very important when you're writing the word equation. The ions, as I say, are very useful when you're writing your chemical equations and your balanced chemical equations. Okay, so we understand now that when we put an acid and a metal together, we're going to get a metal salt. So really what we need is an equation which is going to show us exactly what's happened. Now, in all of the reactions that we're going to be running through in this section, we're going to be looking at a generic equation. Now, the generic equation basically is made up of your reactants and your products. Now, your reactants in this case are going to be firstly your metal and your acid. Now, when a metal and acid are put together, they produce, as we've stated, a metal salt and hydrogen gas. Now, the thing that we've already looked at in year 8 is that hydrogen gas can be tested for with the Pha Test. So if you're doing a reaction, all you need to do, if you know you've got a metal and you know you've got an acid, put them together in the test tube, and the gas coming on should give a pop when you put a lighted splint. So how do we use this in an example? Well, here's an example we've got for you here. We've got magnesium metal, which is reacted with hydrochloric acid. And from this, we've got to deduce what is likely to happen. Well, we know that all we have to do is to substitute into the generic equation. So what is the metal? Well, the metal is magnesium. What is the acid? Well, the acid is hydrochloric acid. From the table before, the metal salt is going to be generated. Now, the salt for hydrochloric acid is a chloride. We already know that the metal is magnesium, so we substitute magnesium for the word metal and chloride for the salt. That is the equation all sorted. So we end up with magnesium plus hydrochloric acid gives us magnesium chloride and hydrogen gas. Your job is to actually learn this reaction. You need to know it off by heart, and as a result, when you're given an example such as the one I've just shown you, you can then say, I've got metal and acid, this always produces the metal salt and hydrogen gas, and by knowing the various tests for the gases, you can work out exactly what gas is generated. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is have a quick click on the link for metals and acids video. This will show you magnesium reacting with hydrochloric acid and the Pha Test. Then you can use the activity 7 to answer the questions. Now the questions will set up various scenarios as to how you can use this type of reaction. I hope you find it useful. Join me again and we will look at the next reaction. Thank you for watching.